Hey there, Wranglers. How you doing? Welcome back to another roundup. And first of all, let me address a few things. I've seen criticisms on both sides, like some of the bigger YouTubers. One of them, somebody complained about her that she always uses her hands to talk with. Somebody complained about me that I just sit here and look at the screen. Well, I'm going to try to do some of both today. We're gonna use our hands and we're gonna look at the screen. So we're gonna try to do both things if I can remember to do them. Anyway, today's show is about the Yuba County Five, also known as the American Dyalatov Pass incident. All right. Now, if you guys remember the Dyalatov Pass, you can look back in some of my other videos that I cover the Dyalatov Pass. It was an incident that happened in Russia that's very mysterious, and this one's up there. I'd say almost as mysterious, if not more mysterious, than Dyalatov Pass because some things just don't make sense in this one. And excuse me for uh, itching my nose there. Anyway, let me tell you about this: the Yuba County Five, and some of these I'm going to stumble on a little bit. Um, Speaking is getting better for me, but they're a group of young men from Yuba County, California, and they were known to have intellectual disabilities. Now, some of them were what they would call slow learners. Some of them were, had basically had mental issues of different kinds. You can see a picture of them up here. Um, that I'm going to pull that picture up a little bit. You can see a picture of the boys right here. Um, and they always hung together. In fact, they called them the boys, but they had different levels of mental capability and that kind of thing. Now, I'm not gonna disparage that. I know plenty of people who have had these kind of things, and I've suffered with some of this myself, not necessarily on this end of the spectrum, but other things. But anyway, these men were, yeah, they did, like I've said about 10 times now. Yeah, some of them were, basically had mental liabilities. I'll put it that way. And but they were, there was four of them, or five, excuse me, five of them that were involved in this experience, and I'm going to go on to explain that experience. Now, these guys, they called them the boys, and they loved basketball. Basketball was their favorite thing. Not only did they like to watch basketball, but they loved to play basketball. They had their own little they had their own little team called the Gateway Gators, and they were big fans of U.S. California State University, and they would root them on any chance they got. In fact, the way this story begins is these boys had a tournament the next day. They were going to go play in the tournament that they had signed up for their league, for their levels. And on the way to the tournament, they wanted to stop by and watch the University of California game, which they did. And they had there's evidence that they made it there. Lots of people saw them. They had programs from the game, and they this was basically I believe it was in Chico, California. Now, each one of these guys was basically kind of grew up at home. A couple of them had been in the army. The one here on the end, Matthias, had been in the army. He's the only one they never found. They found the bodies of the four on the left, and the fifth guy on the right here with the strange-looking hat. His body was never found, but he was being treated as an outpatient basis with a couple of drugs. I guess and if I'm going to get these names wrong, I apologize. Stelazine and Cognitin, and was considered by the physicians one of our sterling success cases. He had gotten out of the army; they had to discharge him, but he was and had disability, and he made it for some of his disability by helping his father-in-law with his gardening business. So things looked pretty good for Mr. Matthias as he was going along here, and the only person in the group that had a driver's license was a man named Madruga, and Madruga drove this here. Let me pull this picture up so you can see it better. He drove one of these. It was a I believe I got the excuse me, I got the date and time here. It was a let me see, what was it, 1969 Mercury Montego, and it was I guess a really good car from what you'll learn here. This was his pride and joy, his turquoise and white Mercury Montego, and it's a good-looking car. I think it is. And this is what they were going to drive to the basketball. What they drove that night to go see the basketball game and get ready for their tournament. They had even set out their uniforms and gotten some stuff together. They hadn't put together any cold weather clothes though, and that becomes important shortly. So anyway, they went to the game, and after the game, they were cruising around, and they went to Bears Market in downtown Chico, and bought some chocolate milk and some other stuff, some candy bars and things like that. And the owner was just a little miffed because he was getting ready to close up, and you have five guys come in and start buying things. So I think anybody who's been in any kind of retail can really relate to that. And that's the last time anybody saw him alive. Okay, um, they basically no one heard from him, and time went on, and the first couple of days they went out looking for him. They didn't find him at all. Winter storms would hit. They couldn't really search the area where they thought that they might be and all that kind of thing. They were looking all over for him, and didn't find him till I'll explain to you later where they found him. But in the process of this, on that very night, there was a man named Joseph Shones, and Shones was about I think it was about 20, not too far from this Montego where it stopped, because Jones felt he had a mild heart attack, Mr. Joseph Shones, and he was in his car. And during the time that he was in his car, two groups of people came by. He says, one of them, they were carrying flashlights, and he called for help. And as soon as he called for help, they turned the lights off. And he said it was a group of people. Then another group of people came by, and it looks like one was a lady carrying a baby. Again, he called for help, and they turned out the lights, their flashlights, and didn't help him. Let him sit there in his own car. And finally, in the morning, he felt strong enough to walk 8 miles down the road to get help. And he did get help, and the doctors confirmed he had a mild heart attack. So we're not sure who Joseph Shones saw. If it was actually the boys, or somebody else that was up there, maybe foul play was involved. When you're having a heart attack and these things are going on, it could have been some kind of a hallucination. You never know, or some kind of, not even a hallucination. It's kind of a miss, maybe partially a hallucination, but partially I don't know what you should call it, augmented reality in a way, not in the technical sense that we have now, but was seeing one thing and thinking he was seeing something. A woman in Brownsville, however, had later on confessed to seeing Hewitt and Sterling, two of the boys, use the payphone at her store, and they had gone out and called and came back in and joined their buddies. Now it was quite a bit of time later. They couldn't find him. Finally, whenever the spring came and things became a little bit better, there were some motorcyclists up there cruising around in that area, and they they were driving along, and they came across riding their bikes along, and they found a trailer, like an old hunting backpacking trailer, and they went in there to check it out, and when they opened the door, it just reeked. It smelled horrible. It smelled absolutely awful, and they saw a body laying there on the bed that was in this trailer, and this was Ware's, one of the boys. Ware, uh, what was their names here? Let me read their names for you. I think I forgot to do that, but anyway, it was uh, therefore Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, Ted Weir, Jack Madruga, and those were all found dead. And Gary Mathias was the one that never had been found. So it was Ted Ware's body that it was laying there, and they brought the police up, and the police investigated. It looked like Ted Ware had been laying there for like a good 13 weeks, according to his beard growth and all that. Now here's where it gets really, really strange. Okay, they found Ware was dead. He had severe gangrene and frostbite on his feet. He was covered in about 8 sheets, and he was inside of this hunting camp. And inside the hunting camp was a propane stove they could have turned on. There was another stove they could have lit a kindling fire in there and stayed warm. There was matches, there was candles, and there was food. And it looks like he died from starvation and hypothermia. Not there wasn't just a little bit of food. There were a bunch of sea rations in there, and then right outside there they had another locker that was outside of this hunting lodge or whatever you'd call it, this backpacker lodge, that was full of sea rations, and they would have been able to. All five of these guys kind of would have lasted about a year eating just these sea rations, so they could have survived this. But Ware was dead, and they started looking around the area, and Jack Hewitt. This is really sad. Jack Hewitt found his own son's backbone stuck in his coat, in his son's coat, and they looked around and they found his shoes and his jeans and all this proved it was his son. And they looked around. They started looking around the area, and they started finding the bones and the bodies of the other group of boys here that looks like they'd been scavenged and eaten on and all that. All of them they assumed had died of the hypothermia and maybe starvation or something along those lines. And so they had all these resources available to them, but they didn't use any of them, and we're not sure why. It looks like they had only opened like maybe 8 cans of the food, the sea rations. Matthias had been in the army, and so had I think it was Madruga had been in the army. Both of those guys knew how to use those little army can openers. I think I'm not sure what they're called, but if you've been in the military, you know what I'm talking about. They unfold and you just kind of go like that. Well, anyway, no matter what decisions were made here, they had enough resources in that camp. They even had a half. They even had a full tank of propane to run the heater. So they did that. Now they found the car too. The car, prized possession car, the keys were gone. The back window was rolled down, and the car looked like it had been stuck in a snowbank. But it wouldn't been even that night. It just started snowing. It wouldn't have been a deep snowbank. These guys could have pushed it out easy. We don't know why they left it there or abandoned this car. We have no idea, but they did, and they they when they got in the car, they did find the keys. When they got in the car, turned it over, it started right up. The car was fine, and it had a quarter tank of gas in it. I don't know why they left. They had a car that had a quarter tank of gas, and they abandoned that too. So over and over again, it looks like they made these bad decisions. Now, even though some of them had mental liabilities and mental challenges, um, so at least Matthias and the other guy had been in the army. Madruga, I believe it was, had been in the army. Both of them, they're capable of making decisions. They could have, nobody wants to freeze. I guess they could have talked him into them. I don't really know. Some people think Matthias might have killed them and for whatever reason and then left. I don't know why he would have killed his best friends, but that some people think that's a possibility that he did that. Now, okay, get some hands going here. Now, what I got to looking at this and I got to thinking, and I don't know what happened. I'm not. I can only speculate. What I think happened. I'm going to give you what I suspect what part of this might have happened was they were in this Mercury or in Montego, um, and they're supposedly stuck in a snowbank or whatever. If they had the engine running, you could have. There's a chance that carbon monoxide could have started to fill the car, and that would have made sense when they roll the window down too. Because when you start getting carbon monoxide poisoning, you start to feel sick and nauseous, and you want fresh air. You crank that down. That might have been what they did, and it might have gotten cold enough with that window down that they felt like they needed to seek shelter, and they were able to find this place for shelter and hole up there for a little while. Why they left that area, I don't know. There were some found near the shelter. There were some found farther away from the shelter. The car was found 70 miles from Chico, California. They didn't need to be 70 miles away. I mean, that just didn't make any sense unless they took a huge wrong turn because the road they were on wasn't really heading anywhere. It wasn't close to anything in particular. But we don't know why they did what they did. There was some speculation. And, it looks like the only other thing is it looked like Matthias used Ted Ware's boots to leave because maybe his feet were swollen or something like that. I don't think he would have just killed Ware and taken his stuff. The guy was there for 13 weeks alive, and you know, somehow was probably getting some kind of water source because he would have, or else he would have dehydrated. But this is a very strange case. This is a very odd case. We don't know why these decisions were made. It's really easy to chalk it up to, oh, they were just, mentally handicapped and, they just did dumb stuff. I don't think that they did. I think that your natural aversion to cold, your natural aversion to being lost, and all of that would have um, uh, taken over, and maybe the guys didn't know any better. Maybe they went out trying to search for some resources or something, or trying to find the road. I don't know. We can speculate it on all day long. The only other details I heard, but I only heard this one place, is somebody made a call and said the guys are dead or something like that. But I've never seen any backup for that, and I've never seen any real evidence for that. And the doesn't sound like the police looked into that too much. So this is the story of the Yuba Five. Now I don't got answers for it. I just give you my speculation for part of it. But if any of you guys have any information on this, put it in the comments and we'll talk about it, because it is, it's a mystery, and an interesting case, to say the least, of continual bad decisions, continual mistakes, and what would have driven those or what would not have driven those. And this other group of people that this guy claimed he saw, we don't know anything about that, why they'd be walking along this road, with a pregnant woman and all this in the middle of the night, and that kind of thing. So anyway, guys, thanks for today's roundup. I'm not sure what else to say about this case other than I want to hear from you, because there was a lot of resources, and I did some research, did a lot of research, and I tried to put what I thought were the relative facts in there. If I've missed some, let me know, because I'd love to hear from you. Now, take care, and I'll talk to you at the next roundup.